Hey everybody, it's your old pal Bro again. You're on my show, Registered Cinephile. Today we're talking, what happened to the haha? Where'd the funny go? Why is there no great comedy movies anymore? I'll be turning 30 in the next month or so here. And growing up as a kid, we really grew up in what I call the golden age of comedy. Through the early 2000s, it was every other weekend. Superbad, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, Zoolander, the list goes on. And I watched a lot of videos about the reason of where comedy movies have gone. And there's obviously woke culture and things have changed and money, and we're selling a lot of films internationally. And now, if you want to hear about that stuff, go find another video because that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm here to talk about what no one seems to want to address when it comes to this absence of great comedy that we've had is what I like to call the disappearance of the four horsemen. The four greats who really nailed some of the biggest movies in terms of comedy when I was growing up that are not so much done with it, but have kind of moved on to bigger projects and no one really talks about this. So first things first, just to tie into my last video, we're going to start with Evan Goldberg. So Evan Goldberg, as I was saying on my last video about The Boys, is the executive producer and one of the big pushing forces behind the crew, behind The Boys, Gen V, Diabolical, Invincible. And oddly enough, one of his business partners is also Seth Rogen. Do you guys know where he came from? Evan Goldberg is actually the guy who directed The Interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco. Evan Goldberg also directed This Is the End, which is another great comedy. Produced Superbad, Pineapple Express, Goon. And yeah, now he's doing The Boys and stuff. So those are a lot of great comedies from the producers and directors that now that he's kind of taken himself out of the race. Next one I want to talk about, which I think is just wild. So I'm going to rattle off some movies here. Road Trip, Old School, School for Scoundrels, The Hangover, Project X, Hangover Part 2 and 3, Due Date. So there's a lot of great comedies. Would you consider that the guy who also directed all these also directed Joaquin Phoenix The Joker? Yeah, I'm talking about Todd Phillips, the guy who's been doing The Joker, which was just phenomenal. Like in terms of dark, just twisted, dark takes on a supervillain movie. That was phenomenal. I'm so excited for part 2. That's Todd Phillips. That's the guy who directed The Hangover, Project X. He was, for a lot of years in the mid-2000s, was winning awards for being the most pirated movie years and years in a row from banging out these comedies. Well, he's moved on to do these. I mean, I ain't hating. I'm excited for The Joker. Keep doing what you're doing, Mr. Phillips. But that's another great guy that we lost who was just banging out banger after banger of these comedies year after year that now has kind of disappeared into the ether. Oh, this next one. This is probably my favorite, my number one out of all these directors, Mr. Adam McKay. I am a die-hard Will Ferrell fan, John C. Reilly, Talladega Nights, Anchorman, Step Brothers, other guys, Anchorman 2, all of these growing up, everything on Funny or Die were so good. And again, not that I'm not liking what he's been doing, but Adam McKay has moved into his last 3 movies. The Big Short, about the housing crisis, phenomenally well done, super interesting for taking something that was super boring and making it into an actual digestible, enjoyable, kind of funny movie. And then Vice, which is about John McCain, which is just some of the most phenomenal kind of poli-sci, I don't even know what you'd call it, documentary is trying to be. It's phenomenal. But again, it's not comedy. These are very deep kind of political. And then Don't Look Up on Netflix, which again wasn't my favorite, but it was well done for the point they were trying to make. But again, this isn't Step Brothers. This isn't The Other Guys or Talladega Nights, right? So these guys have moved on, and it's kind of leaving a gap. And last but not least, this one is just blew my mind when I realized it. So you don't normally think of this guy as a director. He's starred in a lot of movies, but Ben Stiller, another one, directed The Cable Guy, Zoolander, Tropic Thunder, countless movies. There's Something About Mary, all these comedies that we grew up with. And he's kind of been moving into some other things, but most recently I started watching this, we're going to dive into a whole other series of why you need to get Apple TV Plus if you have nothing to watch, but we'll dive into that in a second. Severance on Apple TV, which is, if you haven't watched it, is this absolutely insane corporate psychological thriller that's like, we're going to do a whole other episode just on that. I don't want to give anything away or something, but if you haven't watched it with Adam Scott, phenomenal. Ben Stiller's directing. When I got to the end and saw that he was the director, like, I just thought it was a phenomenal show in general. But I get to the end and it's Ben Stiller. It's like, oh my God, like, these, like I said, the four horsemen have really, Adam McKay, Todd Phillips, Evan Goldberg and crew, and Ben Stiller. I'm not saying that they were the only ones doing it, but they were definitely four of the biggest ones. And again, the woke culture, international markets, all these things do have a factor, but no one's talking about that four of the greatest guys that we grew up with kind of moved on to chase other avenues. And they're doing great in their own thing, but I think that's a big part of the reason that we have this gap of no good comedy that no one wants to talk about or address. Let me know in the comments. Registered Cinephile.